Well, it's been a while since I did one of these one-on-one videos. I'm Angelo, and I made a video a while ago talking about when I was disabled for 9 months. I was having severe hallucinations. I was in a lot of pain. I could barely sleep. I was compulsively pacing for 23 hours a day for several weeks, if not longer. I'll link to that video below. And I talked about how I was diagnosed with several things. Bipolar disorder when I was 21, schizophrenia when I was 27. But I've always thought about those. I'm like, does that really make sense? Is it right? It always seemed kind of like a diagnosis without a whole lot of thought. It was kind of haphazard how I was diagnosed. Like, well, you probably got this. It sounds like you got it. And the thing is, I've been unmedicated for the last 5 years, and I haven't had any relapses or any of those same symptoms. I mean, I still always sort of have to manage the feeling that, you know, some of those symptoms may come back and, you know, keep those thoughts at bay, but that's not really how schizophrenia works. So I've been looking into it and I was thinking about it. And by the way, 5 years is the longest time in my adult life that I've gone without falling into a terrible illness with these hallucinations and debilitating thoughts, and it affects everything. Like, I can't perceive things normally. When I was at my sickest, when I was 27, or in 2012 to 2013, I couldn't even drive a car because I knew I couldn't process that I needed to stop the car at red lights and for other cars. I would crash the car. I knew I would. So even though I knew I would do that, somehow I couldn't make the connection back to reality. I was incapable of watching movies. It was so painful. I could barely watch TV or even understand what was going on TV. I didn't understand there were people. Anyways, I'll link to that video. I won't tell that story again. But I was thinking about this again. You know, I'm like, why am I going through this sometimes? You know, what triggers this? What causes this? You know, it still kind of upsets me to think about. And I was looking up some symptoms and found search results for depersonalization, derealization, and dissociation. And for the first time in like 16 years since I've started getting these problems, I think I realized this is probably what it is. This is probably what I have. It makes a lot more sense because, again, how would I be unmedicated for 5 years if I had schizophrenia and functioning? Like, you can't, I don't think you can do that. Because it's not like you can just have a good mindset, you know, and do work you like and not have symptoms that are uncontrolled if you have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And I did have a hypnotherapist tell me once she didn't think I had bipolar disorder. I was too functional, although I was very dysfunctional for a long time. Oh, we have fun talking about this stuff. So what I learned with depersonalization, derealization, and dissociation, and it's dissociation, not disassociation, which confused me. I kept trying to search it, and the other term came up. Apparently, what those are is, well, basically what I went through is being disconnected from your body, not feeling your emotions, feeling you're going insane, having hallucinations, having delusions, all those things, which I went through big time. And I still always sort of struggle with. You know, they're always sort of there lurking, but fortunately I have much better ways of coping. And fortunately I'm just not in a spell of those things. But they can be triggered by feeling overwhelmed, sort of getting sensory overload. And I was thinking about that the other day because I was kind of worried about that and feeling bad, and I was kind of overwhelmed. And so I was looking this up, thinking, okay, how do I manage this? What is this? What do I do? I found this YouTube channel, and I'm not pitching anything for this guy, by the way, just so you know. I'm just saying I found this. I don't know really how well backed up this is or not, but this guy, Harris Harrington, has a YouTube channel all about this stuff, and I'll link to him below too for anyone who's curious. He says depersonalization is when a sensitive person goes through accumulated trauma, and as a way of coping, it's like their mind automatically disconnects from themselves, and so they can't feel anything. They're numb, like they can't feel their ambitions, their passions, their drives. In my case, I was feeling hallucinations that were very intense and felt like a huge amount of pressure on me, that I was being ripped out of my body by God and he was trying to destroy me, and a lot of other things too. It was really horrifying. It was just terrifying. And he says that being in overwhelmed situations or feeling like sensory overload can trigger those again. And I thought, well, sure enough, that makes sense, because how else would I have had these long episodes? When I was 17, went through it for 18 months. Oh, it was terror. It's easy to talk about now that I have some distance from it. When I was 22, for a year. Just feeling numb, feeling horrible. Like it was weird. I couldn't feel satisfaction in anything, couldn't enjoy eating. I constantly feeling torn out of myself. I couldn't enjoy films. It's like I didn't have my sense of humor. I literally, humor did not react, I could not react to anything funny. Even though, yeah, I could kind of laugh, but I was forcing myself. I was bitterly hurting. And then again, majorly, when I was 27, I was just the sickest I've ever been. Literally, at my worst, I was literally pacing 23 hours a day uncontrollably. I could barely swallow, so I could barely eat food. I could barely sleep because I was compulsively pacing so much. And I was in so much pain anyways. Even if I wasn't pacing, I was in so much pain I couldn't sleep. I was very delusional. And it took me a while to recover from that too. And I'm still amazed, how did I even recover from that? I was sure I would never get better. So I looked at this guy, Harris Harrington, and his YouTube channel, and just thought about the stuff he said. It's weird. His videos look like they're filmed in his shower or something. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I thought it was good to see that, and it helped me sort of calm down. And he talked about the importance of relaxing. And I've been kind of thinking about that lately anyways, just not being so hard on myself, being so serious. I'm an expert at just having the bleakest, darkest thoughts about myself, and giving myself the most negative story about why things are terrible, why things aren't working. And I have to keep reminding myself it's a decision to be responsible for my well-being. And that's scary, because when you're miserable, it's like if things don't work out, you can say, well, I was miserable. Like it was something that descended upon me. So if things don't work out, it's not my responsibility. It's misery coming towards me. Whereas if I'm deciding to be happy, or deciding to at least be well, not always happy, just be well, have things I'm pursuing, have things that are meaningful, take risks, then I risk not meeting people's expectations on who I am in my own terms. And that's scarier in a way, because it's like you're risking other people's disapproval and failure in front of others. And that's a constant thing, everybody has to deal with, and especially for any kind of filmmaker or artist or people who are in creative fields, where they have to put what they create and express themselves in front of others to be judged or not. And it's like feeling like you're being judged sometimes, and it can be terrifying. I talked about the story of having my script outline critiqued by a Hollywood screenwriting consultant, and I was just so humiliated. But it was a good experience. He was a very nice guy. He was good about it. It was still absolutely excruciating, humiliating. And it was because I really put myself out there. I didn't hold back on it. But I learned a great deal from it. I made it empowering. For a while, it was so humiliating. I was like, I cannot even escape the humiliation of being shown how bad my screenplay was, or my screenplay outline. But I had written the screenplay, or 90% of it, and I knew how it would end. So by that point, I was like, I want to see if the outline works. Anyways, so with depersonalization, derealization, dissociation, they're all kind of correspond. I realized that probably makes a lot more sense, and it's just something for me to think about and take good care of myself and try to really relax and not put pressure on myself, because that can be the horrible, most worst thing, is just putting this constant miserable pressure on myself for no real reason, just to be sure, okay, make sure I get it, that things are horrible, and I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that I'm in a better position than I really am. And that it's scary to sort of, you take that leap when you're deciding to take responsibility for your own well-being, because now it's like, if things don't work out, if you don't get what you want in a certain situation, if you don't get someone's approval or attention, it means that's you not getting that. It's not like you can say, well, I was forced into this situation by misery and therefore it didn't work out, and it's other forces colluding against me. Anyway, so, it can be tough to think about and deal with, but I at least want to talk about that, because apparently, first of all, no therapist I don't believe that I've been to or psychiatrist has ever told me that about depersonalization, derealization. Now, maybe they did. I've been to many therapist appointments and psychiatrist appointments. I don't remember. The only person I really remember telling me this is a guy I knew who worked in the mental health care field who said I probably had those symptoms, but I couldn't understand really what he meant or what that was. And also, while I was going through it, like, I could not get better. Unfortunately, I was in so much pain. I don't know any way I could have gotten out of that except letting it alleviate itself over the course of 9 months. And it was excruciating pain. I mean, try not sleeping and pacing for 23 hours a day, and I was like ducking my head down, back up, and hallucinating horribly painful things, and knowing like I could never connect to another person again. I could barely speak at times. I could barely process things in my head. It hurt to do anything. It hurt to be by myself in the bathroom. I enjoy being by myself normally, but I was so scared of being alone in any situation. It was just terror. So anyways, I couldn't really understand like what that meant, or I didn't really think like that could work for me, that diagnosis, or that would be helpful. And sure enough, at the time, there was nothing I could really do about it. But now looking at it, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. This is a kind of situational thing that can be triggered. And just learning to relax sometimes and always be active and sort of be more courageous and brave and take risks and be well and not, look so negatively on myself. And maybe it's helpful for others because, again, if therapists don't know about this, I don't know if probably more people go through it and don't even know it, and they've been misdiagnosed. Don't assume you're misdiagnosed. Again, I wouldn't recommend that you don't listen to your doctor. I'm just saying, just inform yourself, keep an open mind, be ready to learn different things, because it took me this long, 16 years, to understand, okay, this is probably, I think, what I have. And when I first started getting this when I was 17, when I got that first panic attack, that was just horrifying. I mean, it was terrifying to me. I didn't even know what mental health care was. I had no idea I needed any help. I thought, I don't need any help. I'm fine. And when things go well for me, I'll be doing better. I had no clue, that I did develop my own life and go through a lot and, learn a lot of things, how to sort of process things, how to feel, how to connect to others. I had no concept of that. It was a brutal period of many, many years, and it's still always sort of a, conflict in me. But now I'm much better at it, and I could still always be much better at it. And the good thing is about filmmaking, it's an outlet for all that. It's a way of processing it, making sense of it. And no matter what I'm doing, I can always be learning about something that's empowering to my filmmaking. And now screenwriting that I'm doing, and I'm learning other stuff too. I'm reading more about film and biographies of filmmakers, and it's a lot more meaningful and productive now, and a lot more helpful to me, whereas even 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it was just brutal for me to try and go through this if I was feeling lonely or rejected or at a loss. So anyways, depersonalization, derealization, disassociation. There you go. 3 things I learned in the last 2 weeks that seem fairly significant and that apparently a lot of therapists don't really talk about, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it's not that necessarily that well understood. And apparently what works for treatment is not medicine necessarily, but it's things like focusing your thoughts, writing things down. It's self-help, and which always worked way better for me than medicine. I never really benefited from taking medicine. So anyways, I hope that was helpful to someone. Maybe someone else out there is going through that and realizing that this describes what you're going through: depersonalization, derealization, dissociation. So that might be something that really gives you some clarity and helps you recover from what you're going through. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. I got my green thinking shirt on in my green studio, my room. And keep watching. Got a lot more videos coming. Check the description for other links. And that's all. Thanks.